Hello and welcome back to Get Up and Game. My name is Josh, and in this video we're going to be celebrating the fact that this channel has hit 3,000 subscribers. I don't know what to say anymore. If you've been following my channel for a while, you've heard me say this a whole bunch of times now, but it is just beyond astounding to me that we have been able to build this channel up to 3,000 subscribers. It's a monumental number to me. It was unachievable to start out. And I'm so grateful that even though production has slowed greatly over the summer and this year in general, I haven't been able to be as productive this year just due to life being incredibly busy. The channel continues to grow, and I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful. So I just wanted to say a big thank you with this video. I haven't been producing videos much lately because this Thursday, 2 days from the time of this recording, I'm welcoming my second son into the world. And so we've just been so crazy busy with getting the house ready and just preparing our family for the new edition that I haven't been able to take the time to make videos, but there are always so many videos I want to make. I always have so many ideas, and I've never had the time to make all the videos that I've wanted to make, but especially lately, the past 6 months or so, the ideas have been piling up, but the time has not allowed for me to make videos. So what this video is going to be is sort of a compilation of many of the videos that I wished I had had time to make, and here you're basically getting the short version. Here, I'm just going to try to talk about as many quick topics as I can, just give my general thoughts on things, but without all the polish and preparation that I usually try to put into my videos. So that way, at least I still get to talk about these things that I never had time to talk about. And we're going to be starting off with my review of the NeXt Evolution campaign expansion. And since I have to be brief, let me cut right to the chase and say that I think this is the single best product for Marvel Champions. I'm not kidding. I think NeXt Evolution is phenomenal. I have been playing it as much as humanly possible, and I love pretty much everything about it. So let's quickly go through why I think it's so amazing. And the top reason I love NeXt Evolution so much is this right here, the campaign. The campaign is amazingly fun. It is addictively fun. I have never completed a campaign in Marvel Champions. I never played all the way through Rise of Red Skull, Mad Titan Shadow, Sinister Motives. I've never completed any of them. I've played through the NeXt Evolution campaign 3 times, which is nothing compared to some other people, but that is a lot for me. I played through it with Drax on the channel. I played through it again with Wasp, and I've played through it again recently with She-Hulk. And I just love it so much. It is so much fun. You get these campaign side schemes, and when you complete them, it's going to let you start with some kind of crazy, awesome bonus at the beginning of each game. And those bonuses stack. So by the 4th, 5th scenario, you have so much power at the beginning of the game. But what it does is it gives you a level of consistency in a card game that you don't normally get. You know, normally you're going to draw your cards randomly, and hopefully you get your cool combo, and hopefully you get the cards you need the most right at the beginning of the game, but it doesn't always work out that way. Well, if you get the Assemble the Team side scheme here at the beginning, you get to go get an ally right away at the beginning of the game and put it right into play for free. Amazing. You get the established safe house. You get this safe house somewhere. I don't know where these cards all are here in this mishmash on the website, but yeah, you get to have this in play for the whole game. And if you've played it, you know, like you just get these crazy awesome bonuses. There's 6 of them, so you're not going to use all of them in each game. There's a lot of variety for which way that you can approach them. This practice maneuvers one, it's not the most powerful probably, but it is my favorite because it allows you to play expensive events, reduce the cost to play each event with a printed cost of 3 or more by 1. It is so much fun playing Gamma Slam for 3 or Split Personality for 2, and that works on aspect events as well, so you can reduce the cost of things like Concussive Blow, Stealth Strike, Drop Kick. Anything that costs 3 or more, you can drop down by 1, making them a lot easier to play. It is so much fun. I built a Wasp deck around it where I was able to play her pinpoint strikes over and over and over for 2, and I did that through the whole campaign, and it never got old. It was so much fun. I love playing through this campaign. And it wouldn't be as much fun if the villains weren't great. But thankfully, another reason I love this box so much is all the villains are fantastic. Apologies if I'm going very fast, by the way. I'm literally just trying to sneak this in 2 days before the baby is born. So it's been next to impossible to find time to record. And I seem to have maybe snuck in a window here. So I'm going to try to take it. I'm going to talk very fast while I'm doing this. But I want to go through the villains just very quickly. I think they are a lot of fun, all 5 of them. You get the Morlock Siege scenario where the first 2 use these 7 villains, these marauders, so you get a ton of variety. They all work similarly, but they're differently enough that they definitely provide a different experience depending on the group that you come up against. And the Morlock Siege scenario itself is pretty easy, especially on standard. It's definitely a little tougher on expert. And we're going to talk a lot more about difficulty here soon. But it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of story being told. You get the first 2 or 3 rounds where you don't have to worry about anything too major. And then once the Marauders bust the door down and you're protecting the Morlocks, the scenario kind of changes and it has a different feel. But it's relatively easy because the Morlocks, if you play it well, you get tough statuses on them, making them easy to defend. You get the high treachery that gives your life a little bit, that makes your life a little bit easier. But it's a really, really fun, very thematic scenario. And it's a nice, easy start into the campaign. It's really not too hard, but it gives you a good flavor for what's happening. And then when you move on to the second scenario, On the Run, things get quite a bit harder. I find this scenario very difficult in solo, especially in expert. Outside of the campaign, I don't think I've beaten this in expert. I find it very difficult on solo because you absolutely have to kill any minions that are in play, any marauder minions. Otherwise, the villain is going to get to scheme, and it's not that hard for him to complete this 8 threat stage, and then you just lose the game. So it gives you a lot to worry about, and it feels like a lot to handle. I can't pinpoint what makes this scenario so difficult. There are definitely some really hard cards. Favored Weapon is a horrendously awful card. If you're not set up to get rid of it, then with giving the enemy attacks overkill, piercing, and range with +1 attack, and if you're not set up to defend against an attack and take no damage, you're stuck with that. And that card has wrecked me multiple times. I just find a lot of the cards in this encounter set particularly difficult, and then there are a ton of nasty minions. But I really like the scenario. I just think this one is probably one of the hardest ones in the box, actually. Juggernaut, what can you say? Juggernaut is absolutely perfect. I think Tony nailed the theme on Juggernaut. He is so much fun. I've seen a little bit of complaint that basically the scenario is flip the helmet and win, but I don't think that's the case because Juggernaut has a lot of effects that flip the helmet back. So you put a lot of time and effort in spending 3 resources to flip this thing over, and then maybe you have an easier time of it for a while, but there are a lot of effects in the scenario that then flip the helmet back, making it always kind of a risky play. Like, do I spend the resources? And then it just gets flipped again, that villain phase, which is always a fun moment. Annoying but fun. I think Juggernaut is one of the best villains in the game at this point. He's a lot of fun to just throw down on the table and play. You have to have a plan for him. You definitely have to flip that helmet over, but I think it would be a fun challenge to try to see if you can beat him without flipping the helmet over and things like that. Like, there's different ways you could play him. Really, really, really good. And this is where we first introduced the Hope Summers mod, and I have a lot to say about this here in a little bit. Absolutely love the Black Tom Cassidy encounter set. I think this is a really, really good encounter set to include in other scenarios. It's mean. It is not easy. There's a lot of stun and quick strike. It's a really mean one, but I think it adds a lot of just really good difficulty to a scenario. Mr. Sinister is my favorite scenario in the box. I think he's just amazingly thematic, the way he gets the different superpowers, and I've just had a lot of fun with him every single time I play. He can be difficult in solo for sure because the scenarios only go up to 5. So you have to have a plan. Like, that's one thing. My experience is very much colored by the fact that I've always had a plan going in. I haven't just been throwing random decks against these. I've been playing the campaign almost exclusively. I haven't played these standalone much. But playing in the campaign, knowing what I'm coming up against, building decks specifically tailored to beat these scenarios has been unbelievably fun and has made every villain really fun. I think if you tried to come up against Sinister without a plan and without a deck designed to keep this 5 threat main scheme down, again, always talking solo, I've only played these in solo, you're going to have a tough time because he's going to get those superpowers quick. And then when he gets to his final scheme and he's only attacking Hope, and that's a big thing with this box, you have to be able to defend in some capacity because in almost every single scenario, the villains are trying to do something other than attack your hero, and you need to be able to deal with that. So it can be very challenging if he gets to this final scheme, which he can do very, very well. He's very good at scheming. But just, again, the flavor, the theme in these scenarios has just been knocked absolutely out of the park. And Mr. Sinister is one of the coolest X-Men villains, one of the coolest Marvel villains. And so I'm so glad that this is a scenario I'm perfectly happy to just pull out of the box and play. You don't have to have a plan, but I don't think you have to have like some crazy super good deck to take Mr. Sinister on. Again, talking in standard, I think you can just play him for fun and have a really, really good time. You get a lot of variety with the different mod sets, the flight, the super strength, and the telepathy. So you're never quite sure what you're going to get, and that is true for most of the scenarios in this box. There's a lot of variety. And then when you come to the final villain, Strife, amazingly, he doesn't absolutely pound you into the ground like Venom Goblin or Magneto or, God forbid, Ronan. I really like Strife as a final villain. I think he is a lot of fun. He has some really interesting mechanisms. When you get to towards the end and you're drawing 2 extra cards, but everything costs 1 extra, that's weird enough to add a lot of variety, but I don't think it's so weird that I don't want to play it that often. Like I think it's something like Collector One who has weird mechanisms and it's like it's kind of a pain to get out. Or even someone like Zola, like, okay, does this deck have the ability to deal with a retaliate? No, then I don't really feel like playing Zola. There are some villains that you don't really want to pull out of the box all the time if they require some sort of a very specific strategy. And usually the final villain in the box is often that way. Like you're not going to come at Red Skull unless you can remove threat very well, things like that. But so far with Strife, the times I've played him, I mean, I have had a plan because I know what he's going to do, but I feel like I could just throw Strife on the table and play him, and you would just find a way to make it work. Like I just think he's a really, really awesome, huge fan of this, especially as a final villain. I don't play a lot of the final villains very often. I don't play Magneto very often. I don't play Venom Goblin very often. They're very hard, and I find them just overly taxing to play against, and I don't often enjoy them. But Strife has just really captured my imagination, and I really want to play Strife over and over again. I think he is so interesting. He has lots of really cool cards, a great theme, and again, surprisingly not difficult. And that's now would be the good time to talk about the third thing I absolutely love about Next Evolution for a campaign expansion is the difficulty is amazingly well balanced. I remember when this came out, and I saw a lot of sort of negativity on social media about, oh, it's too easy, it's too easy. What? What? Like, I don't get, how is that a complaint? Like, you can so easily make this game harder. Like, yes, it is kind of easy on standard. You're going to take a deck through and you're probably going to win. How is that a bad thing? Like, I couldn't believe that because I was playing through it and I was loving it. And then I see some voices online just crying out, like, oh, it's too easy. I had to do this and I had to do that to make it interesting. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just a different kind of player, but I thought it was amazingly fun, and I don't want it to be soul crushingly difficult. Everybody complained how hard Galaxy's Most Wanted is, and then this comes out and everybody's saying it's too easy. And it's like, I guess the designers just can't win. But it's so easy to make a scenario harder. So of course, start it out on a low difficulty and make it accessible to the entire player base. Like I know there are players out there who want a tough challenge. And sorry, you're just staring at this boring page. I don't have any kind of nice presentation for this video. This is just going to be me talking to my screen. But I think the difficulty is a plus. It's a feature, not a bug. Is the saying. Like it's so good that it's so easy because there are so many different types of players for this game, and there are lots and lots and lots of casual players who don't want the game to be overly difficult. And for the players who want a crazy big challenge, it's easy to find that. Play these villains on Expert is a drastically different experience from playing them on Standard. Tony proved in Mojo Mania that somehow he has this knack for making a scenario easier than normal on Standard and then harder than normal on Expert. Like he knows how to find that gap between Standard and Expert and make it really noticeable. And so, it really serves the whole player base. And of course, you can change the mod sets out. None of the mod sets in this set are particularly difficult. I think the ones that come with Strife are pretty tough. There's a lot of really, really bad minions, and this Extreme Measures has some really mean cards in it. But for the most part, I found the mod sets to be a nice balanced difficulty sort of across the board. But, if you own other products, you can certainly put harder mod sets in these to make them harder. So I think the difficulty is just so perfectly nailed to serve the entire player base. And it's just one more thing that makes this box phenomenally good. Like literally anybody can play it. Now, to quickly talk about a couple other things that I think is important to mention, of course, we want to talk about the heroes. And first we'll talk about Cable. Cable literally changes the game of Marvel Champions. His introduction of player side schemes and the way he works with player side schemes means that if Cable is on the table and you're playing in a group, the game is going to play differently than it does if you're not playing with Cable in your group, because of the fact that he can start with a player side scheme and play. He's so well rewarded for clearing player side schemes, and he can just keep playing them over and over and over because he has access to all of them. Gives your table, similar to how the campaign in Next Evolution gives your deck a level of consistency you don't normally get to enjoy because of having those player side scheme the player side schemes, they're upgrades that put things into play for you. he does the same thing, just clearing player side scheme after player side scheme. You're getting a free support, you're getting a free upgrade, you're getting a free ally, you're getting a free weapon, and your deck just sings. Like the table just hums, and it's almost like a different difficulty. It's almost like a mod of the game, like a variant of the game playing with Cable on the table, because he just changes how the game works. And it's amazing. And he's so fun to play. Like, it is fun to have that consistency. It's fun to just be able to go get a powerful ally and put it in play for free. That is so much fun. Yes, it's powerful. Who cares? It's fun. And that effect is powerful, but he himself does take a while to get rolling. So I don't think it's overly powerful. And again, if you find it too powerful, you're free to change the scenario that you're playing against to make it harder. But I just think the fun outweighs anything else. He is so awesome. Now in solo, which I've only really tried him a couple times, I find him a bit slow to get started. And then if you can survive the early game and you get rolling, you're going to be just fine. He is very, very strong. His end game is crazy strong, with the fact that his events are unlimited. Like the telekinetic blast here is just going to deal 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage, however many player side schemes you've cleared. And if you're playing him in a campaign that happens to have other side schemes that end up in the victory display, then that's a lot of fun too, adding even more power to Cable. But Cable's one, I kind of only want to play him in two-handed solo play or in multiplayer, just because of what he can do for the table, just the level of support he provides. I think he screams to be played in multiplayer. And this is me as a hardcore lover of solo, defender of solo. I think solo is an amazingly fun way to play this game. I still play it that way 95% of the time, and drastically prefer it. Well, I don't prefer it over multiplayer, but I prefer it over two-handed. If I'm in the mood to play Cable, I'm probably playing two-handed, because just what he can do for the other deck. And like I said, it changes the game. Like, playing Cable and somebody else is, I don't know how to describe it other than saying it almost feels like you're playing a different game, because what he can do for that other hero just makes that other hero a lot more fun to play than they usually are. He can help you go find those cards that you need right away, and your deck is going to work better than it normally does. So much fun. Absolutely love Cable. Domino really hit me different. I was more excited for Domino than I've probably been for any other hero ever, because of just all the really cool manipulation effects that you could tell she was going to have. And there's just so much thinking that goes into the game, and just so much, thought it was going to be random, but in the end, it's really not random. She has complete and total control almost over what she's doing. And I'm sad to say, I don't really enjoy her very much. And that's probably not going to hit some people right, but I know she's very beloved, but for me, she kind of feels like work to play. Like, she has so many effects. Once you get her rolling, you get both pistols in play, you get sharpshooter out. She's got all these effects that you're triggering every turn. And by the end of a turn with Domino, I'm just exhausted. Had to, just starting a turn with both pistols and sharpshooter in play, you want to activate a pistol, so you flip a card, your sharpshooter, then you flip a card for the pistol. One of them was jackpot. Okay, I got to shuffle that back into the deck. And then I'm going to do it again for the next pistol. And then, maybe hit jackpot again. I got to shuffle my deck again. And there's a lot of power there and strength. It's a lot of manipulation. It's a lot of constantly moving things around. And I thought in my head that would be really fun. I have found in practice, just for me, I know people are really enjoying it. For me, I guess it's more effort than I want to put into it. So I haven't really played her that much. I played her a couple times and really got to see what she can do. And it was very strong, but it kind of put me off. And I'm really sad to say that, because I was super excited for it. I just feel like it's a little too much. She has a little too much manipulation, a little too much control. I thought it was going to be a little more random, a little more uncertain. And it's anything but. Like, it's not luck. I don't know how else to say other than she just has too much control, and I'm glad people are loving her so much, but I haven't really wanted to play her. And maybe I just haven't had the right game with her. Maybe I need to try her again. I've only played her a few times, but it was because, like, it felt like work. I don't know how else to say it. So for me personally, Domino is the least best part of NeXt Evolution, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's just how it's worked out for me. But I still think she's good, and I know there are people who love her, so I don't think it's a negative overall. But she ended up being my least favorite part of the set. One other big thing I want to talk about, well, the side schemes in general, I didn't talk about the player side schemes themselves, also changed the game. I think just having access to these, even outside of Cable, just having, because Cable can play all of them, so that feels like particularly special and powerful. But even just using them outside of Cable, so you can only have, say, your one aspect or two aspect ones and then the two basic ones, I still think has been absolutely game changing for many different heroes. I've really been enjoying build support and superpower training. And again, I'm sorry I don't have these cards handy. I'm trying to do this on the fly. Let me find them real quick. Yeah, so like build support here. Each player may search your deck and discard powerful support with a cost of 3 or less and put it into play. Like I've been putting that in pretty much every deck. And superpower training, which should be around here somewhere, I would think. Well, that one lets you go and get an upgrade and put it into play. It's absolutely phenomenal. Call for backup. This is like one of my absolutely favorite new cards in the whole game. Each player may search your deck and discard power for an ally and put it into play. Like you can go get Beta Ray Bill. You can go get Spider-Man if you're playing a multiplayer and somebody's playing Justice. You can go get whatever crazy expensive ally that you never normally get to play with and put it into play for free. It's phenomenal. And it changes the game. Like that's my tagline for this review. NeXt Evolution changes the game. Cable changes the game. Player side schemes in general change the game. And then one other big thing that changes the game for me is this Hope Summers mod. Having access to this outside of the campaign as just a mod set that you can choose to play with to make the game easier for yourself, I think that is a stroke of brilliant genius. I can't say it strongly enough. I think this Hope Summers mod is phenomenal. Because again, I know that there are people who want a crazy big challenge and they want this game to be really hard and they just want to feel like, oh, I'm just getting beat up all the time because that's the kind of game I like to play. I don't think that's the kind of game Marvel Champions is. Marvel Champions is a superhero game and you're meant to feel powerful and the superheroes are meant to win in the end. And yes, I want there to be a challenge too. I don't want it to be easy, but I don't mind when it's not crazy hard. And some things are crazy hard and are sort of inaccessible to some players who don't have the time or the ability to make like really powerful decks or whatever it's going to take to overcome a Venom Goblin. Along comes Hope Summers, and to me, she is the solo savior. Hope Summers changes the game in a way where you have this free ally on the board that's going to match your hero's stats. So she plays particularly well with certain heroes that are all about boosting their stats, not as much with others. Hope Summers isn't going to do that much for you if you're playing a Ms. Marvel who only has 1 in all her stats and isn't that interested in buffing her stats most of the time. So, she's still there on the table to provide you an extra 1 thwart. And I think even just that, playing in solo with Hope Summers, if you're using one of those heroes that I always rant about, like a War Machine or a Valkyrie or a Groot, who don't play particularly well in solo because they're so bad at thwarting, and how good you are in solo largely just comes down to how well you can thwart. She comes along and at least she can match your hero's 1 thwart, and that's a free threat removal every single round. And then whatever your other better stats are, if you have a better attack, she can also do that for you. I think Hope Summers is amazing. But if you're playing with someone like a Quicksilver who really boosts their stats up, or Spider-Woman, or a Drax, or somebody that can get their attack or thwart really high, or some of the psionic heroes that all have access to 3 in their stats, you could thwart with 3 with Phoenix or with Psylocke and all that. She just gives you another a helper on the table, which if you're someone who plays solo, I mean, obviously you can play her multiplayer, but my focus here is the fact that what she does for solo play is just opens up so many more heroes and just gives you a little bit more of an edge, because solo is already the hardest way to play this game. You have to do everything yourself. It's easy to get overwhelmed. It can be a little swingy depending on the scenario you're playing. If you just pull a bad batch of encounter cards in a row that in a multiplayer game everybody could work together to overcome, but in solo sometimes it's just all you can do to stay alive. Hope gives you another level of just consistency and control, a little bit more stats on the board for free. It does have this side scheme that can be annoying if it comes out the wrong time, so there is a minor balancing factor. I don't think it really makes up for how much extra help Hope provides you, but I think that's a good thing. She's there to make the game a little bit easier, because there are players out there, believe it or not, and sometimes I'm one of them, that wants the game to be a little easier. There's just a wide range of players who play this game, and a lot of us who congregate online, we're the hardcore card gamers and we want that challenge. But I would venture that there are way, way, way more people at home playing this game who aren't posting online and complaining about the difficulty, who would love someone like Hope to come along and make their games a little bit easier, because you're just trying to have a fun, casual experience. And she provides that. And so that is why, between Hope and the player side schemes and Cable, I think NeXt Evolution changes the game to the point where at one point I made a buyer's guide for this game. And I laid out a path for what order you should buy this game in. And like a lot of people do, I recommended that you buy the Rise of Red Skull first after the core set. I don't think that's the case anymore. I honestly think you buy NeXt Evolution first. I think this could be the first thing you buy after the core set. It's not that hard. If you're playing it on standard, even with just a core set, I think you could really enjoy the campaign. Then you get access to the player side schemes from the beginning of your journey. You have that level of consistency that those provide, and they really do change the game and will give you a different, and in my opinion, better experience throughout your entire Marvel Champions career. So for me, my new recommendations for an updated buyer's guide, something I've been wanting to do for a long time, is you buy the core set. I think you buy NeXt Evolution first. You get awesome Cable, you get awesome Domino. Most people really like her. I think it's just a me thing that I find her a little bit overbearing, but a lot of people are really loving her. So you get two awesome heroes, you get a lot of really cool cards, and you get the player side schemes, and you'll have Cable there on the table. So when you are learning the game, if you want to play two-handed, you've got Cable right there next to your Iron Man, right there next to your She-Hulk, heroes that might not always be so great in solo when you're, have a small card pool. You've got Cable there boosting everybody up, just really enhancing your experience. So my new recommendation for the first thing to buy after the core set is NeXt Evolution. I think it's that good, and I think it's that accessible. You get Hope Summers. It's going to make all of your games a little bit easier if you're looking for that. And the player side schemes and the 5 scenarios, none of them are that difficult on standard. And even with just core set and NeXt Evolution cards, I think you could have a lot of fun with that campaign. And then from there, something else I need to address, because of when I released that buyer's guide video, Mutant Genesis was just coming out. It wasn't out yet. So my new recommendation for how to handle this is, I think if you're getting into Marvel Champions and you really, really like the X-Men, like you're getting it for the X-Men or for the mutant side of things, I think after the core set, and get NeXt Evolution first, I really do think that you're going to want those side schemes. You're going to want Hope. You're going to want Cable. Then if you like the X-Men stuff, I think you could go straight to Mutant Genesis instead of going straight to Rise of Red Skull like my original recommendation was. But Mutant Genesis is definitely a tougher box than NeXt Evolution and some of the others. But I think you could pull it off if you get all of the X-Men stuff. That is my recommendation. If you want to get straight to the mutants, I think you can, but I think the more of it you get, the better. Every single one of these packs, Psylocke, Phoenix, Cyclops, Phoenix, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, Rogue, they all add more cards to the sort of mutant X-Men side of things. So the more of these packs you have, the better off you're going to be for the mutants. And then that's kind of all you need. Like, they give you everything you need to play all the X-Men well. So if you're getting in the game and you really want X-Men, then I think you can go straight to it, but I think you should get as much of it as you can. I'm not trying to tell you to go out and spend a whole bunch of money at once, do what's best for you, of course. But if you want that X-Men experience, I think you need to get as much or all of the X-Men as you can. And that will really enhance you, make it possible to play it that way from early in your card pool. After that, then I would just go with my original recommendations. After, if you want to get the X-Men stuff, get that. And then I still think Rise of Red Skull is a great place to go in Wave 2. Those 4 heroes just have a ton of great cards for a general card pool. So that's my updated buyer's guide. That's something, now we're jumping into the quick topics of videos that I would like to have made if I had time. And so that's the new recommendation. Core set, NeXt Evolution, all of the X-Men stuff if you want the X-Men stuff, and then go back to the original video, which I will link in the description, where it goes Rise of Red Skull, get all the Wave 2 heroes, and then you kind of go from there. So now that all that NeXt Evolution talk is out of the way, I want to just talk about a few other quick topics that I would make a whole video for if I had time to. And the first one I want to talk about is 5 heroes that I really only like to play one way. And I kind of already mentioned this with Cable. So what I mean by this, there are 45 heroes in this game now, and the vast majority of them are just fun and awesome and worth playing. We all have our least favorites that maybe we don't get out all the time. But, when I look at my box of 45 heroes, sometimes it is really hard to pick which one I want to play because there's just so many I really, really enjoy. So there are certain heroes I find that when I do manage to get them on the table, I usually only ever end up playing them in the same way because it's just the way I enjoy them the most. And even though they probably could be played in other ways, pretty much every hero plays well in at least 2, 3, maybe all 4 aspects. I find myself playing those heroes the same way every time. And how I mentioned with Cable would be my first one. I actually only like playing Cable in two-handed solo, or I would play him in multiplayer, but I almost never get to play multiplayer. So Cable is a hero that I really only want to play one way. If I'm getting Cable out, I don't really want to play him in solo just because he adds so much extra support to the table. I just feel like I'm missing out on so much of his potential that when I get Cable out, I'm getting somebody else out too, because I know he's going to enhance that other hero so much. I'm going to have even more fun with that other hero, which is going to make Cable even more fun. So he's the first one that I really only like to play one way. And the second one is Valkyrie. I really only ever want to play Valkyrie in aggression. I think for solo play, you're much better off probably playing her in Justice and Leadership because some heroes really do just need that crutch of the extra threat removal that Leadership and Justice provides. But I don't want to play Valkyrie in Justice or Leadership. I just want to play her in aggression. That's what she wants to be doing. She wants to be attacking minions. Aggression has so many ways to be rewarded for that, so many ways to enhance that. You want all the overkill that comes with aggression so that you can be killing a minion and still dealing damage to the villain in order to trigger all of her special abilities. So the times I do play Valkyrie, and admittedly it is rare, and this is partially why. I think if I enjoyed her in Justice or Leadership, I would probably play her more just because she's likely to be more successful. But I think Valkyrie wants to be played in aggression, and it's the only way I want to play her. Another one is Cyclops. I only want to play Cyclops in Leadership. I think he probably could play well in every aspect because he's just really well-rounded. He's really strong. He's very versatile, so he can do kind of whatever you want him to do in any aspect. But Leadership just makes so much sense for him. There's so many cool leadership cards. To me, my X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, work so phenomenally well with him. And just all the other ally support with things like rapid response. Why would if I'm gonna get Cyclops out, and I wish I had time to get him out more. My estimation of Cyclops grows every time I play him. I think he's phenomenal. But 45 heroes, I can only play everybody every so often, and Cyclops, I love him so much in Leadership. It's the only way I ever want to play him. Venom is a hero that I know probably plays best in Justice, but I only ever want to play him in aggression. It is rare for me to play aggression in solo. It's just not my style. I like it, but I don't love it. I prefer to play Leadership and Protection are my two favorites. But whenever I play Venom, every chance I get, I want to play him in aggression because his hero ability makes it really, really easy to play Dropkick, which I think is a really fun card. And he already has so much threat removal and villain control that the things that make it difficult to play aggression in solo, you need those things, and solo aggression doesn't offer that as well. He can control the villain, he can remove the threat for you so well, and then he gives you access to the really fun aggression tools, like I said, like Dropkick, and of course, since he has the built-in weapons with the pistols and the multi-gun, gives you access to Mean Swing and Fusillade, just some really, really good aggression cards. I think like I said, he's probably best in Justice, and you're going to play Venom in Justice in solo, you are not going to lose. That is one of the most powerful combinations in the game. He's one of the best solo heroes, and obviously Justice is amazing for solo, but I just really, really like throwing down Venom with aggression. And my last one isn't going to be a controversial choice at all, I don't think, but Ghost Spider, every time I get her out, I just play her in Protection. And I know it's similar to a Drax thing where it's like, well, duh, of course you play in Protection, right? Even though I don't always play Drax in Protection, but I do always play Gwen Stacy in Protection. Now, I know from people I've trust online that apparently she's amazing in Justice now with Upside the Head. I haven't tried it. I'm sure it's great. It makes a lot of sense. But the times I do play Ghost Spider, and I've gotten myself in trouble in the past because I tend to rank Ghost Spider a little bit lower than a lot of people do, though every time I play her, she usually does move up for me. I do think she's really, really fun. But there's another little segment I'm going to talk about here in a second that is part of the reason why she's continuing to grow for me. But when I play her, I only want to play her in Protection. It makes so much sense. It makes the best use of her abilities, and she's just so very powerful that way. But a big reason why I'm going to stick with her in Protection is because Taunt is my new favorite card in Marvel Champions, and I really, really want to talk about it. One cost event in Protection, the villain attacks you. Other characters cannot defend against this attack. Draw 3 cards. Now, on the surface, that probably sounds terrible. I know when this was first announced in the Angel Pack, a lot of people wrote it off. Oh, you're only netting 1 extra resource, and then you have to deal with a villain attack. Not worth it. But I'm telling you, you got to play with the cards before you decide how you really feel about the cards. And the second this was announced, I immediately proxied up 3 copies and started playing them in a Drax deck. Amazing. Amazing. And obviously it's good for Drax, right? Out of all the heroes in the game, he wants to be attacked. He has cards that make the villain attack him. He gets boosted by villain attacks. He draws cards. He gets stronger. But it works. It works really, really well. And he's well set up to handle those extra attacks. He's got a lot of health. He's got the parry, which prevents a lot of damage. So it just works for him. But I think Taunt makes Drax a better hero. I don't know if Taunt makes anybody else better, but it is so much fun in the right heroes. I think if you play Taunt with somebody like Spider-Man, and that makes perfect sense thematically, he is constantly taunting the villain anyway, but he has to draw that extra card from being attacked, and he's decently well set up to handle those attacks. And you don't want to think about it in terms of you're only netting one resource. Like sometimes we break these cards down to just the pure mechanical numbers, and it takes all the theme out, which for discussion is fine because you still want to compare the power of cards, but it's not about netting one resource. It's about getting 3 new cards in your hand, 3 different cards in your hand, 3 cards deeper into your deck to help you find the cards that you're looking for. You pay for Taunt with a card that you weren't going to play anyway, and then you deal with this villain attack, however you're going to deal with it, and you need to have a plan. You don't just throw this in any old deck. And then you get 3 new cards. It might get you to that upgrade you've really been looking for, that double resource you really need, or whatever it is. It's going to help you cycle through your deck, and you want to get through your deck faster. You need that consistency. I talked earlier about how much player side schemes change the game because it adds a layer of consistency. It gives you one more option, another way to find Ant-Man's helmet, another way to get that Dweethite Mastery, whatever card you're looking for. You've got basically a second copy of it in your deck. Taunt kind of works the same way, where it's another 3 cards you get to look at a hefty cost of having the villain attack you. And that's why I think it works particularly well in certain heroes. And of course, being in protection is perfect, because if you are playing somebody like a Ghost Spider, I find my biggest problem with Ghost Spider, when I do speak negatively of her, is I find her hands get clogged with so many cards that want to be played during the villain phase or reacting to what the villain is doing. And sometimes I have more cards than I need, and then I just have all this leftover. Taunt gives me a way to use those cards. If I'm playing Ghost Spider and I have leftover defense events, I now have a way to use them. The downside with Taunt, and this is important, is this is an action, and you have to go sentence by sentence. So it says the villain attacks you. You have to completely resolve that attack, and then you draw 3 cards. So if you draw any cards, like if Ghost Spider were to draw, say, a Ghost Kick or a Phantom Flip or something, you can't play those off of that attack because that attack has already been fully resolved before you draw those cards. So that is a minor downside of it. I wish you could use those cards to react. But, if you already have cards in your hand that can deal with the attack and you're already really good at defending, then getting attacked isn't that big of a deal and could be a benefit. Another reason I really like Taunt are certain heroes, and I suppose I could be showing the actual heroes. Sorry. Let me go find one other person. So I love it in heroes like Drax and Spider-Man that already want to be attacked. I love it in heroes like Ghost Spider that already want to be defending and using a lot of defense events and things like that. There are some heroes that are really, really good at defending, but they also want to go to alter ego all the time. And I think of like Gambit. So Gambit, with his 3 defense, he is really well set up to run some kind of perfect defense strategy where he can defend for, make a perfect defense, take no damage. He even has his armor that's going to ready him if he does that. Like, he is tailor-made for the perfect defense strategy. The problem is Gambit also wants to be flipping to alter ego every single turn whenever possible. And I have found when I play perfect defense with a hero like that, it just doesn't work very well, because the turns where I'm in alter ego, I have so many cards I'm not making use of. I'm not using my hard to ignore. I'm not using my inflappable. I'm not using my energy barriers because I'm not getting attacked. And so it just doesn't feel like a really good way to run a hero like this. You can still do it, but either you're not going to alter ego as often as that hero wants to, or you're not making use of all the cool cards that you put into play to help deal with villain attacks. Taunt fixes that. I played a Taunt deck with Gambit. I go to alter ego. I do all my also awesome alter ego stuff. I don't have to get attacked. And then when I flip up and I have all these cards in my hand and on the table that want to deal with a villain attacking, I play Taunt. I get to use all those cards, and I get to draw 3 more cards. So I think Taunt is amazing for that as well. So it's just something that's really, really been changing the game for me. Oh, and one other hero. I just did this yesterday. She-Hulk. She-Hulk loves Taunt. She has 15 health. Make use of that. She's already trying to take damage to try to build up to that big Gamma Slam. I built a protection Rush deck, which I never play Rush, but I love Taunt so much. I've been throwing it in a bunch of different heroes and having fun with it. And just using that with She-Hulk, just take the attack to the face. Who cares? She has 1,000,000 health and she's getting to draw 3 cards, and that's getting her closer to the Gamma Slam. And then, you drive your health down and then just wallop the villain with a 12 damage Gamma Slam or whatever you're going to do. It's so much fun. Heroes with these giant health pools, Hulk could probably make good use of it. I haven't tried it, but it makes sense. And Colossus is another great one. He never takes damage anyway because of all the tough statuses. You could either throw a taunt into a tough, prevent all the damage and draw 3 cards, or even if you don't have a tough, let Colossus take the damage. Who cares? He normally doesn't, so he's got all this health he's not making use of. And then you can use taunt to draw 3 cards. It's such a drawing 3 cards is huge. Like I can't overstate that. Like, yes, the villain's attacking you, but I know some players don't like, using negative effects to then gain positive, hurting yourself to help yourself. And that's fine. If it's not your playstyle, ignore it, but don't be afraid of it. It's really worth it in the right situations. Now, you don't want to use it probably with certain villains like Magneto that get like really nasty bonuses when they get to attack you. Like, you don't want to be giving Magneto free magnet counters, and there's various villains. You might not be wanting to use it against somebody with the Infinity Gauntlet, giving them a free trigger on that. Like, it's not for every scenario, but there are lots and lots of cards that are not for every scenario. So I don't think that's a negative at all. That's just every card is situational to some degree or another. So I cannot say enough good things about Taunt. I absolutely love it. It's been so much fun, and I just keep trying it in hero after hero after hero. And if you don't like protection, well, I don't know if it's going to change your mind or not. But for me, who loves protection, I feel bad for the Justice people. Because, yes, they did just get an awesome new card, Float Like a Butterfly. I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but I feel like Protection just gets like awesomely cool cards all the time and just keeps getting better and better and better. So if you're a fan of Protection, you're always happy. If you don't like Protection and you say like Justice, you're seeing Protection get all these awesome cards all the time. You're like, gee, that must be nice. It is nice. We like it. All right, I have 2 more sort of mini topics I want to go through. One of them is a video I really wanted to make and I just didn't have time. Was somebody, a very good friend of mine out there that's just been such a good friend of the channel, Serious Rain, really wanted me to make a video about good deck testing villains. And I think this is a great idea for a video. I just didn't have time. And I also, might sound weird, I don't know. I also don't test my decks. Like, that's just not a thing. Like, when I sit down to play Marvel Champions, I'm sitting down because I already had an idea for a deck that I wanted to play, and I just build that deck and then I just play it against whoever I'm in the mood to play. Like, I'm not trying to test a deck to make it better and better and better. I can see why people do that. Like, maybe you're trying to post a deck to Marvel CDB, so you want it to be as good as possible. So you're going to play it a lot to really refine it. Or maybe, you're playing multiplayer that weekend with your group and you want to make sure the deck that you bring is good. So it makes sense to want to test your decks against certain villains. That's just not something that's not my experience with the game. Like I said, I usually either have an idea for a villain I'm in the mood to play against, or a hero that I had an idea for a deck. While I was at work, I was thinking about it, and then on my next day off, I put it together and I just play it. And then I usually don't play that deck again. Like, I just move on. But I did put some thought into this, and I think if I did do this, there are 2 different ways I would approach it. Whenever I play a brand new hero, if I was testing a deck of a brand new hero I'm trying to get to know better, I don't really know their cards, I haven't figured out their flow yet. If I was going to build a gauntlet of villains to take a brand new hero through, then I would start with tower defense. I think this is a great starting scenario for any hero, partially because it's just really easy. This scenario, it throws enough at you to keep you busy, but there's nothing particularly weird or overwhelming about it. Yeah, the villains can hit pretty hard, so you want to make sure your new hero can survive that, but they also kind of give you the option to put damage on the Avengers Tower instead of taking the bigger hits. So, outside of campaign, you just go ahead and do that. Just throw that damage on the tower every opportunity you're given, because you're probably not going to put 18 on it by the end of the game. So you can really take advantage of that. This scenario is much harder in campaign mode, where you're trying to keep the 9 damage off the tower. So it works really well for that. The other thing I like about this scenario is just the way Proxima and Corvus's main schemes work. Is you don't lose by scheme, you don't lose by threat, so that's nice. So if you are playing a new hero that's maybe not so great at thwarting, it's going to give you an opportunity to still play them without losing because you didn't thwart well enough. but also the penalties, as long as you don't let Proximus pop where it puts a bunch of damage on the tower, you don't want that, even outside of campaign. It's a lot of damage. But Corvus, he just deals you an extra encounter card. So when I play these guys and I'm trying to get to know a new hero, I pretty much always just flip down to Alter Ego when it's Corvus's turn to be active. Because if he does scheme out, and I still will thwart his scheme, I'm trying to stop it from scheming out, but if it does, it's not that big of a deal. You get an extra encounter card. The encounter cards in this scenario aren't that damaging. Like, they're not great, they never are, but they're not that bad. So you can afford to take an extra encounter card because it's giving you the opportunity to go to Alter Ego. You'll use your Alter Ego power, use any supports you have. Those are going to give you the extra power you need to overcome that extra encounter card anyway. And it just really gives you a chance to try out fully that new hero without, just having to deal with a lot of different stuff. That's why I really like this scenario to start out with. Anytime I'm trying out a new hero, I think it works really, really well. And then from here, I would probably head to Crossbones next. I think he's a decent step up in difficulty, but not drastically so most of the time. And he just gives you a little bit of everything to deal with. Again, nothing weird or strange that your new hero may or may not be able to deal with well. But just a nice, even challenge. It's a fun scenario. I really, really like Crossbones. So I think this would be the second one in my new hero gauntlet. From there, I would go to Mutagen Formula, or Drang could be another one if you have the Guardians of the Galaxy box. But Mutagen Formula is just one of my favorite scenarios anyway. I play this a lot, and I find myself frequently going to this one. I've been playing Angel and Psylocke against Mutagen Formula. I just really enjoy this one. I think this one is sort of the definition of a scenario that throws everything at you, because that encounter deck is so big. It is just full of extra activations, tons of minions, boost effects, side schemes. You don't want to let the threat get out of hand. Like, this scenario really, really has it all. But because that encounter deck is so big, you don't know what you're going to get. Like, it really gives you a variety every game. Like, yeah, you're probably going to get a lot of minions just because that's what this deck is trying to do. And they come out a lot during the boost effects and stuff like that. But, you might get a lot of side schemes that you need to deal with, or, whatever. So Green Goblin would definitely be in my gauntlet, and often is when I'm playing with a new hero, or if you don't have it and you do have Galaxy Most Wanted. Drang provides a pretty similar experience. He also has a lot of minions and a lot of side schemes, kind of gives you a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of a tighter design. It's a much smaller encounter deck, but you still get a pretty good variety from the Brotherhood of Badoon scenario. So that would be another good one. And then just to round things out, if I feel like the new hero I'm playing is pretty strong, or if I feel like I've built a pretty good deck for them and I really want to see how well it is, how good it is, I usually throw Thanos on the table. I have really come to enjoy Thanos more than I used to. I used to think he was a little bit annoying, mostly because of the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know if I've just gotten used to it, but I actually really like Thanos. I've been playing him a lot. And so he's sort of my really hard villain of choice. He's not nearly as hard, I don't think, as Magneto or Venom Goblin or Loki. Maybe not even Nebula, who is not somebody I would throw a new hero against. But I think if you want a really good challenge, I think Thanos is probably the villain that provides the hardest even challenge. I think Thanos is very well balanced, that he's really tough, but it still feels like a fair fight. I think once you get past Thanos, everybody's a little bit too hard, or at least for what I'm looking for from a difficulty, especially if I don't have like a super well-tuned deck. So then Thanos is usually where I sort of wrap up my new plays with a new hero before I decide it's time to start, really trying to build some good decks. And, he really gives you a little bit of everything, including Stalwart, which means, if your new hero really likes Stun and Confuse, then you're going to find out what they're really made of without it. And I tell you, I've played Psylocke with him, and turns out Stalwart's just fine. Psylocke is just that good. She doesn't mind the Stalwart as much as you might assume. There are other ways to handle these big scary villains, but I haven't tried him with Angel yet, so I don't know how well that's going to go. But yeah, I just really like throwing new heroes against Thanos, so I probably will play Angel against him just because that usually ends up happening. So those are my sort of gauntlet for if I'm playing a new hero. So I would play Tower Defense for sure. I think that's such a good scenario to start with. And then Crossbones, and then Mutagen Formula or Drang, or both. So those are all fun scenarios, but you're going to get a heavy minion scenario either way with those. And then if you think it's going well, you think they're pretty strong, see how Thanos goes. But maybe I'm not playing a brand new hero, and instead I think I've just got a really good idea for a really solid deck, and I just want to see how good that deck is. Can it handle everything? Then I would have a completely different gauntlet, starting with Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw is another one of those villains, similar to what I said about Mutagen Formula. I just find myself playing this scenario a lot. I tend to get it out a lot when I build a new deck that I think is pretty cool, and I want to see how well it does. I think Ebony Maw is decently challenging, especially on Expert. He's pretty strong. You start with two spells in play, and he really comes at you. He's got enough extra activations that those spells can really tick down fast. He is vulnerable to Center Confuse, but he's the first villain in the gauntlet, and a lot of my decks that I build tend to use a lot of Stun and Confuse because I really enjoy those effects. And so, he's not overly difficult. I can see how well the deck works when those are firing on all cylinders. So Ebony Maw is usually my first villain of choice if I'm trying to see if a new deck is good. From here, I would go to Red Skull. I think he's a step up in difficulty, not overly so, but definitely harder than Ebony Maw, and just a scenario that asks a lot of you, certainly a lot of your ability to thwart. And I think if you're building a really good solo deck, and I'm sorry, I know some people don't like that I talk about solo so much, but it's what I do. So it's mainly what's in my head when I'm thinking about these things. And if you're building a really good solo deck, it's going to need to be able to thwart well if you think it's going to play well across the spectrum of villains. And Red Skull will be a very good test to see if your new deck can thwart very well. Though I think, with all these villains, solo or multiplayer, you're trying on a new deck, Red Skull is just a good test. He's a pretty solidly difficult villain that really throws a lot at you. And I think deck testing, a really good thing is variety. And I do find that my experience with Red Skull varies pretty decently depending on which side schemes come out, which modular encounter sets you put in there. And when it comes to difficulty like standard or expert, or with the mod sets as far as deck testing, that's really up to you depending on just the level of challenge you're looking for. Obviously, if you want to see if these are really good decks, you want to be playing these on expert. I think these are all reasonable challenges on expert. Ebony Maw on expert is hard, but not overly so. Same with Red Skull. He's not that much harder on expert, so you could be trying them on expert to see if your deck is really up to the task. We're going to continue that theme of variety and not knowing exactly what your deck is going to be going up against, because next I would recommend Mansion Attack. This is another one that I find myself playing frequently when I want to see if a deck is good, because you don't know what you're going to get. There is so much variety depending on which villains you start with and which of the main schemes you end up with. You might be facing Steady, you might be facing Retaliate. You don't know. And so your deck needs to be able to handle all of those things. So if you're trying to determine if it's going to be good enough for that weekly meetup, or you're going to post it online, if it can handle Mansion Attack, particularly an expert, then I think it's probably a really solid deck. And if you play the scenario a few times, get a few different combinations, and the deck is still performing well, then I think you're going to get a really good view into whether or not that is a really solid deck. And then a new one makes it onto this list because I mentioned earlier that I don't think I've beaten this scenario in expert. I just think this is really hard, at least in solo. I don't know, maybe it's easier in multiplayer, but there is just something about this scenario that I'm finding very difficult. And again, it's full of variety. You have one of 7 different villains you might be facing. So again, your deck needs to be able to handle every different kind of challenge. And this scenario really provides it tons of minions. You need to be able to manage the threat because it's easy to lose. The main scheme only goes up to 8, and then the game is just over. If you make it to the second stage of the villain, it does go up to 9, so you have a little bit more breathing room. But either way, I think this one, you could beat this one, especially on expert with your deck, then you're doing better than I am anyway. Must be a pretty good deck, because so far I have not had any luck, and it's really fun. And again, it provides the variety. I think that's so important. Talking about you're testing your deck against villains, you want somebody who's going to give you sort of a different type of experience and a little bit of everything. And so that's what this one does. And then similar to what I said with having a nice tough capstone at the end with Thanos, I think if I wanted a really hard challenge for my cool new deck that I think is just really good and can take anybody on, then I would bust out Venom Goblin. Because I don't really enjoy Magneto or Ronan much these days, but I think Venom Goblin does provide a decently fun game, even though he's so super hard. And it's relatively fair. I think some of these super hard, like very hard capstone villains are maybe a little unfair at times. They just have so many debilitating effects and incredibly nasty encounter cards that, especially in solo, if they come up in the wrong order, there's not much you ever could have done, no matter how well you played. Venom Goblin probably has some of that, but I feel like he's just probably the most fair of the really, really hard villains. Like, I don't know if you could pay me enough to play Loki again anytime soon. And like, I'm kind of done with Magneto, and I don't really enjoy Ronan. So if I'm looking for a really hard challenge, my recommendation is Venom Goblin, the very definition of throwing everything at you. You've got 3 main schemes to manage, so many nasty minions. He has got a ton going on, and if you can handle him, I think even in standard, he provides a very hefty challenge. That if I beat Venom Goblin standard, which I do play him every now and then, and I do manage to beat him every now and then, I feel like I've got a pretty good deck if it beat Venom Goblin in standard. If you do it in expert, I don't know if I've ever even tried because standard is plenty hard enough for me for my level of fun. If you've got a deck that could beat Venom Goblin on expert, then you have put that deck through its paces. It has overcome the challenges, and you have a very good deck on your hands. So if I'm testing out a brand new deck that I think is going to be really, really good, and I want to see how good it is, then I'm going to be facing Ebony Maw, Red Skull, Mansion Attack, On the Run, and Venom Goblin. I think those 5 scenarios provide that level of challenge that you're looking for, that level of variety you're looking for. But maybe you don't have all of those villains, then, and hopefully you can take what I've said, like how I've described these villains, and whatever it is you do own, try to find those villains that don't have like really out there kooky mechanisms that I feel like you need to build a deck for. Like, I wouldn't test decks against Collector 1 where you have to manage the stupid collection. It's just annoying, particularly for certain heroes. It's just like you have no chance. I don't think Ultron is a particularly good deck testing villain just because you do have to sort of build for him at least a little bit, unless you're playing a hero that already happens to be really good at beating Ultron, like somebody with Retaliate, or like somebody with a lot of AoE, like War Machine or Rocket or something like that. If you're just playing regular old hero, I don't know if I'd go up against Ultron. I don't like Zola as a deck testing villain just because that Retaliate is so annoying. It can really be debilitating for certain decks. And I don't like Project Wide Awake either, the Sentinel scenario as a deck testing, just because you can't chump block, and some decks just really want to do that. So I think you need to have a specialized deck for that. So I would say, even if you don't have these ones that I've recommended, just try to stay away from scenarios that are going to ask you to do some really weird things. Now, I don't know. I feel like somebody's going to tell me they prefer the opposite to see if their deck can really, really handle those crazy challenges. Well, then, you could go that route as well. But for me personally, I prefer the scenarios like what I described, that throw a little bit of everything at you, and they just sort of do that in increasingly difficult ways. So those would be my recommendations for deck testing villains. Let me go to the next one. I want to talk about the 5 heroes that my opinion has changed the most since I last did my hero rankings in January. And the first one is the Hulk. I don't have my rankings handy, so I don't know exactly where I had all these, but he's tends to be low, but not nearly as low for me as he tends to be for a lot of people. I don't rank him last or anything like that. I've always said I enjoy him fine. I recognize the problems, but I'm still able to have fun with him. I played the Hulk the other day for the first time in a while. I actually played him two-handed with Cable because I really wanted to get the most out of Hulk. And I thought, oh, this will be really cool. Cable's going to be feeding Hulk all this stuff, and he's just going to be awesome. I didn't have any fun with him. I'm not saying he's terrible. I'm not ringing that bell. But for me personally, I just found the same thing everybody always says about Hulk, but for whatever reason, I never felt like it bothered me as much. A lot of his cars just feel overcosted, or maybe it's just a play style thing. I just didn't really enjoy. I didn't like paying 2 for Unstoppable Force to ready him when Limitless Stamina does it for 1. Like, I know you could potentially draw a card back if you pay for only with punch resources, but there's like, why is there a limitation on that? And I know I get it. Everybody knows all the problems with Hulk, but I'm just talking more about the fun I personally had. And, I don't know if I'm going to play Hulk again ever. Even with Cable pumping him up, I just really didn't have fun. So I think next time I do hero rankings, Hulk is going to drop really close to the bottom. He just was not fun for me, and it really just put me off of him. And yeah, I think I'm probably not going to play him again. Another one that's changed pretty drastically for me is Captain Marvel. She ranks decently high. I think she was in my sort of second from the top tier of heroes that I like pretty well. And I got her out a couple times this year, and both times I enjoyed her just like less and less. And again, it has to do, similar to what I said about Hulk, I don't really like her hero cards that much. Like this Crisis Interdiction is just so overcosted for what it does. I don't think her cards are very fun. Voltonic Blast only does 5 damage for 3, and you might get to draw a card. Just feels very underpowered. And I know it's meant to make up for the fact that her hero abilities are very strong. Her alter ego ability to just straight draw a card is very good, and her ability to heal in hero form and draw a card is very good. I'm not saying she's not very good. I just find her sort of a shell of a hero. Like, I don't really want to play her cards. I like her powers. I don't really like most of her cards, and that's one thing that's very, very important to me as a Marvel Champions player. The thing I love the most are the heroes, and I love their hero kits. That 15 card hero kit, I think, is just a brilliant, brilliant way to bring these heroes to life. You know, I love the Lord of the Rings game, but you really only get the one hero card, and then they might get one or two special cards that go with that hero. And that's not really enough to bring those heroes to life. I think expanding upon that, like they did with Marvel Champions, and making it up to 15 cards plus the hero cards, all those hero powers, just brings so much theme to life for each hero. And so when the hero has a bunch of cards I don't care about, and it's like, oh, but she's gonna help you play all those aspect cards and stuff. Like, I get that, but that's, I don't know, that's just not fun to me. The ideal situation is that the hero cards are great and also synergize with the card pool. Sometimes you get heroes that are just, their hero cards are so good they don't care about the card pool, and that's a whole separate issue. And that doesn't bother me nearly as much, though, is when I don't really care about the hero cards. And it's like, oh, you know, even if it's helping you play aspect cards well, and you can build really, really good decks, you can build any kind of deck with Captain Marvel you want. I'm pretty much just pitching all her cards as resources to pay for the other cards. And it's just not fun for me. So she's another one. I don't know if I'd go as far to say as I'm not going to play her again ever, but it might not. I don't know. She just does not sing to me at all anymore. So she's another one that's going to drop quite a bit. One that is going to rise quite a bit next time I do hero rankings is Hawkeye. I had a lot of fun playing Hawkeye this year. I played him a fair number of times when I was doing the Perfect Matchups progression series, because I really wanted to make sure I had his deck figured out, and the matchup I had with him and Ebony Maw, I just had so much fun playing him in that. And then I played him recently. I saw somebody was just talking about how bad Hawkeye is, and I thought, I don't think he's that bad, actually. And so I put him up against Thanos, a horrible matchup for Hawkeye. He doesn't get to use his Stun and Confuse, and that 9 hit points is going to vanish quickly. And I beat Thanos with him. It took a few tries for sure in solo, but Hawkeye can do some pretty impressive things. He has an incredibly self-contained economy, and it just feels really, really good and really thematic to pull an arrow out of your deck with the quiver and then fire it with those expert marksmen using no cards out of your hand whatsoever. You can draw and shoot an arrow, and the arrows are so good. They're just so well costed that, for 2, you can get 6 damage with piercing, and they all have retaliate. And, again, he does have that stun and confuse, and people always talk about, oh, he's so squishy, and I've said it too. There's other heroes that have 9 health. So I don't know what it is that we're picking on Hawkeye. He only has the 1 defense, but he doesn't want to defend anyway because he attacks for 3. He has stun and confuse. He has Mockingbird, which is a really, really good signature ally that can keep him alive. If you can get at least 1 resource generator on the table, and even better 2, that could help you put Mockingbird back down every turn, he's great. You play him with chump blockers because, that's just what he needs. Every hero, the deck that you build is meant to support that hero. And so building a deck full of chump blockers so that Hawkeye can do his thing, it works really well. And I think that's a perfectly fine way to play him. I don't know why he gets as much flack as he does. I think Hawkeye's great. And I just really had a lot of fun with him. So I think he'll definitely be moving up quite a bit. He's got explosive arrow. He's got everything he needs. So yeah. Anyway, I really like Hawkeye. And I wanted to talk him up a little bit. I think he is underrated. Now, with She-Hulk, I don't know if she was underrated before the recent rules change, but I think she's definitely underrated now. If you're not on the She-Hulk train, you need to be, because with the rules change, that makes it so that superhuman strength stays in play if you use an attack to defeat a minion, or if you're attacking a stalwart enemy or an enemy that can't be stunned or confused, or stunned, I guess. This superhuman strength stays in play, meaning she just gets that +2 attack. It's huge. That is not a minor thing. Like, now you can play She-Hulk and just have her crush the minions, and then superhuman strength stays in play. Or if you really want to have fun, play her against Thanos, play her against somebody with stalwart, get her up to 7 attack, and then just punch and punch and punch and punch and punch with 1-2 punch and limitless stamina. And what doesn't kill me? And there's like a million different ways to ready She-Hulk, and it's just awesome. It's just awesome. And I mentioned earlier how much fun she is with taunt. She-Hulk in protection is becoming one of my favorite ways to play the game. It's just she's so fun. And yes, I know cards like Legal Work aren't that great and Ground Stomp, and I don't really love those cards either. But it is what it is. Her hero powers are really really fun, and the fact she's a flipping hero, I really enjoy. The 15 health you can do a lot with. I have really come to enjoy She-Hulk. I played her through the NeXt Evolution campaign, and this is something I forgot to say during the NeXt Evolution review. So I hope you're still watching to this point, because I really wanted to make this point and make it particularly with She-Hulk. One of the reasons I love the NeXt Evolution campaign so much is you can take a hero like She-Hulk, that even with the rules change, she's probably still a little underpowered compared to many heroes, or at least in the bottom half. And I was able to play through that campaign on standard, no problem. And I had so much fun doing it because, and this is the point I wanted to make in the NeXt Evolution review, and I forgot to make it. What that campaign does is it lets you fully experience your hero, because it's giving you access to that upgrade, that ally. The safe house is going to let you draw more cards. Whatever it is, whatever upgrades you're choosing over the course of the campaign is giving you the consistency to play that hero the way they want to be played. You're going to get the best games out of the hero that you're playing through that campaign with, thanks to the way it's structured. And that's the thing I love about it the most. And in fact, that's such an important point. I might need to go back and edit in this same general point back into the review, because I just love it. I got to get Hellcat out from like the first point in the game. I think I got the ally one first or second, because I wanted to be able to get Hellcat, because she's so good. People talk about how bad She-Hulk's thwarting is. She has Hellcat. Hellcat's amazing for thwarting. You get her down there, she's going to thwart for 2. She's going to thwart for 2. You pop her back to your hand. You play her again. Thwart for 2. Thwart for 2. Hellcat's awesome. And yeah, legal practice, I did use it here and there. Sometimes you're in Alter Ego and you got a card or two left over. You remove some threat. Superhuman Law Division's pretty good. So I don't know. That's not a bad card at all. Maybe people don't like She-Hulk because they're not flipping with her. You need to be flipping with her. She wants to be flipping. And Split Personality and Gamma Slammer are two of the coolest cards in the game. Focus Rage is really, really good. She-Hulk's awesome. I am so big on She-Hulk right now. She is going up so much higher in my rankings. I have been enjoying the heck out of her. A big part of it is the rules change, but that was mostly just what got me to play her in the first place. I wanted to see how much of a difference that made, having that extra 2 attack, and it makes a difference. Just being able to kill a minion and keeping that in play, and you're not wasting it like you used to. Like, it used to feel bad to play this card. Like, the stun is nice. You get 2 extra attack and stun, and it's decently costed, so it's not bad. But I had some weird timing with events, but now it's just the fact that you can keep it in certain situations, like playing against Strife in the NeXt Evolution campaign, and on his second form, or in the later part of the campaign, he gets Stalwart. I mean, she just crushed him. Once he had Stalwart, I just got the superhuman strengths in play, and she's one to play Hope Summers with, because she's getting that bonus too. So Hope was also attacking for 7. That's pretty cool. You just can't help. That was super fun. So She-Hulk, huge, probably the biggest change, because I think I had her decently low, and she is going way up. I am enjoying the heck out of She-Hulk. And I know I have at least one viewer who really, really loves She-Hulk, because they've commented a couple times. So I hope you're watching. I hope this makes you happy. And then, just because 5 seemed like a good number, I do have one more. It's kind of going out with a whimper here, because this one isn't a major thing, but I rate, I'm going to be done talking by the time I even get to this hero. I rate Ironheart really, 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 really high. I think she was 3rd on my list recently, or I did in January. It's not recently, but I think I ranked her 3rd. I don't think I've played her since. And I mean, I love Ironheart. I don't think any less of her, but the fact that I haven't played her at all this year, I don't think, she's probably going to have to drop next time I do rankings. I don't know how far, and I don't think anything differently ever than I used to, but just the fact that I haven't wanted to play her, I guess Ironheart has to be my 5th one. If I need a 5th one, the other 4 really stood out to me, but just because 5's a nice number for lists. If I need a 5th one, I'm going to say Ironheart's going to go down, just because
for whatever reason, I haven't had any urge to try out any new cards with her or build any new decks with her. I didn't even think to play her through the NeXt Evolution campaign, and I definitely want to play through it a couple more times. Definitely want to take Hawkeye through it because I think he'll fully be able to, and it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so Ironheart's going to drop at least some. She definitely doesn't deserve to be in like the top 10 if I, or at least the top 5 where she is now. If it did never even crossed my mind to play with her recently. I probably played with all of my other top 10 heroes at some point this year, but I don't think I played with Ironheart. So that'll be my 5th one. And then just kind of tacked into here, I want to quickly give my Angel and Psylocke first impressions. Since we're talking about hero rankings, and it makes sense to kind of talk about how I feel about these guys. I don't really know where I would rank Angel. I really, really like him. I have enjoyed him a lot. He's kind of everything I tend to enjoy in a hero. He has really good alter ego play. He has villain control. He has an interesting economy. I usually like really strong economy heroes, and you can build in a good economy with the powers of flight, and the Avian Anatomy is a really cool economy card. But a lot of his kit is incredibly expensive. So I think when you play him, you need to get a lot of economy on the table. He has access to all the good mutant stuff, so you can easily get all that, and you can make really good use of it because Metamorphosis probably his best card. So much fun, so easy to get to Alter Ego and back. You can flip down, use all your cool powers, flip, and use Metamorphosis to flip up into whatever form you want to be in. Everybody says he's really, really strong. I don't know if I'm just not playing him well, but I've played him a decent amount. In some games, he feels very strong to me, and some games I feel like I can't get anything done. I haven't played him enough to understand why that is, but as far as like a first impression goes, some games he feels strong to me, and some games I just lose, and I feel like I'm just behind the 8 ball from the first turn. And I think it's largely just because he's got a lot of expensive cards. And yeah, he can draw a card in angel form, and that really helps. Maybe I'm going to Archangel form too much. That would be might be a guess. But like half the time, I just feel like I can't afford to play his good cards because they all cost 2 or 3, and there's just a lot of them, so there's not a lot of room to play a bunch of different cards. I'm starting to ramble because I want to do this quickly, but so Angel, I'm high on. I like him a lot, and I want to play him a lot more. Like I feel drawn to play him over and over because I'm trying to solve the mystery of why I feel like it's not quite working out. I've played him. I've had the best success in leadership, just getting that nice cheap clarity of purpose in play, and I really like building up Psylocke because she's easy to keep in play. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I really really like Angel as much as I thought I would, and I knew I was going to love Psylocke, and I was not wrong. I love Psylocke. Psylocke is so awesome. I think she might be my new perfect solo hero. I've said that about Spider Woman in the past, but Psylocke with just the absolute total confuse lock built into the deck and the economy right on the table with the two side blades here, giving her access to 2 free resources every turn, totally makes up for the 4 hand size. I don't care about that. Plus, she flips down every turn, every other turn anyway, so you're getting your 6 hand size all the time. Which is probably why they had to give her a 4 hand size because she was going to have too much power. She had 5 because she's getting access to her alter ego so easily. She is so much fun. Being able to manipulate these events with trying to get your knife and your katana in the right configuration. Usually, I like having one of each just to get a little bit of both out of each event, but sometimes you just want to be hitting really hard for 3 or attack or thwarting really hard for 3. So then you're going to want 2 of the same. But there's just so many different things you can do with her. She has access to mental resources or access to physical resources. So there are cards that care about that. She has access to just so many different things. She's got really good encounter card cancel. She has great thwarting. She has relatively low damage. I guess her big attack card only does 6 if you don't do anything to enhance it. But the fact that she can shuffle these cards back into her deck means you can be playing your 6 for 3 as many, pretty much as you want to. So she has a strong end game where you can just keep shuffling those heavy hitters back into the deck. She can tutor for skills, which we didn't even know she could do that from the original release article. So that gives her a lot of consistency. You can go straight for your hone technique. You can go straight for your float like a butterfly or combat training. So a lot of good skills and the aspects that you can tutor for, not to mention her very useful disposable ones. I love Psylocke. Psylocke, I don't know. This is probably extreme, but she might just go ahead and slot right into that Ironheart slot where Ironheart's falling. Psylocke, she's going to be way up there for me. Super, probably top 5, definitely top 10. I want to play Psylocke all the time. I've been playing more Angel just because I'm trying to figure him out. I find him to be such a puzzle because it feels like I should be doing better with him, but I lose as much as I win. I'm sure it's just me, but Psylocke is just like effortless. She's so good. She's incredibly strong, but it's always more important to me that they're fun and you can play a lot of cards because she has a good economy, and you can play all her hero cards because she can recycle them back in. That's everything I want in a hero. So big, big, big thumbs up for Psylocke, and definitely thumbs up for Angel as well. And I think with that, that was everything I could think of that I wanted to talk about right now, at least getting out a lot of these ideas and thoughts. I really, really wanted to talk about NeXt Evolution because I think it is so, so good. And if anybody was wondering what my recommendation was, it's go buy it as fast as you possibly can. It's amazing. And just some of these other topics as well. Super excited about Taunt. Clearly, I'm very excited about She-Hulk, apparently. Just wanted a chance to talk about a few different things in a somewhat more casual format. Again, sorry if it wasn't always the most fun to look at, but it was just the quickest and easiest way for me to make this in time for the baby that's coming in 2 days. And I know I said the Adam Warlock video was going to be the last one till the baby, and I was able to squeeze this one in, but this probably will be it for a little while. So I wanted to say a huge thank you again to the 3,000 people who have 3,000 plus at this point. People who have clicked that subscribe button. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Even when I said I was going to be turning down the production, I said I was probably not going to be producing videos very often, and I have not fulfilled some promises that I've made about series. Everybody stuck with me. I really thought I would see my subscriptions just tumble, and I thought people would just kind of turn my channel off and then maybe wait around to see if I came back. But that has not. The channel has just consistently and continued to grow, and I'm so happy for that because I'm still going to be here. This is just a temporary thing, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but stick with me. I am going to be back, and I still have lots of things I want to do. So thank you so much that has continued to happen. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to sign off, and really excited about what's next in my real life. And the game also is just in the best place it's ever been. I think the new stuff, the new cycle has been phenomenal, and it looks to continue. And I think everything is just as great as it can be. So thank you so much for joining me, and I really look forward to seeing you next time we get up in game. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.